Well, first of all, thank you, Luigi, Antonio, or should I say grazie, and welcome to Wolverhampton and all our visiting guests. And that's what I was doing. It's really good to have this, and we big thanks to Luigi for organising this to for all the visitors, alumni, fellow professionals, and the students. We're looking forward to this, and it's the start of a series which has been going on. So over to you, Luigi, to get the proceedings going, and I shall mute my mic. Take care.
Okay, thanks, Colin. So first of all, welcome. As Colin said, welcome to the University of Wolverhampton. If this is a virtual environment, it's like we are in the same place in a different lockdown period. First of all, I wanted to advise you, this session will be recorded. We use the recording to share inside our virtual learning environment. My suggestion, as I told you before, is like, if you don't need to talk, turn your mic off, because it's the best way. Otherwise, we keep listening at what's going on around all the rooms where you are. If you have problem with the connection and maybe you feel that the quality of the video is not the best one, my suggestion is even to turn the camera off. So, let me kick off this conference. We are in lockdown, and as I like to look at the bright side of the things, I was talking the week before Easter, say, okay, we are going to move everything online, no more face-to-face. People will say, okay, we are doing like smart work, which is not. We are just moving things online. Smart work is something more complex. Smart work is understanding what we can gain from these different way of delivering our lecture. And I said, okay, what we can do, we move everything online. It's going to be more easy to share what we're doing. So for me, the three key for this lecture, as Colin said, for me, it's just the very first of a series. It's first of all sharing what we're doing. The second thing is keep learning things. And the third thing that I do care a lot of these is being creative. We would like to be a provider as University of Wolverhampton, as WLV Architecture, which is a department of the University of Wolverhampton, of inspiration, a provider of creativity, be a think tank for the Black Country and beyond. This should be our role as a university, as cultural institution. I would like to thank you, RIBA, who is partner of this series of lecture. And as I said, I hope this will be the first lecture of a long series. So what we can learn from the lockdown, we can learn that probably using the online delivery, we can spread our activities even far from Wolverhampton. And this is the good things. So let me introduce Antonio. We are a good friend with Antonio. I met him the first time. I have a few notes to remember everything that I have to say. I met Antonio in 2013 in an intensive design workshop at the University of Palermo. Antonio was a student, I was a tutor. This was a workshop inside the big Italian research project. After this, Antonio and Gaspare, who is in the audience, start an internship in my practice, 3813.it in Palermo, and it was a good opportunity for him to learn, but even to help us to achieve some goals in architectural competition, but even live projects. And we really enjoy working together. I can say, I can state that Antonio was a good student, he's a good architect, he's a good 3D artist, but more and more what I like in Antonio is approach, which means that he is a creative, is creative, and is a thinker. What we have in common, we come both from the same place, which is Sicily in the center of Mediterranean, and we are both alumni from the University of Palermo School of Architecture. We have few passions in common. We like architecture. We have a look at architecture as architecture as an art. We like thinking that the importance of the images, and we share the passion for Palermo Football Club, which at the moment is the most hard things to do, considering where he's playing. But I don't want to spend more time. I would like to leave this virtual stage to Antonio and to start the presentation. Then we will have a bit of chat at the end of this presentation. Antonio, the stage is yours.
Okay. Thank you, Luigi, and thank you all for being here today. And I apologize in advance for my bad English. I will try to let you understand as more as possible. But if you have some questions, you can write on the chat, and I will try to do better.
Sorry, Antonio. Another thing that I forgot. If you have questions, as Antonio said, type on the chat. I'll try to keep tracking of every question on the chat, and then I will give you like the opportunity to talk. Okay. Sorry, Antonio.
Okay. Can we start the presentation? Okay. So as Luigi said, I graduated in architecture in Palermo in Sicily in 2016. But after graduation, I was unsure about what to do because I already knew that I would not have been an architect because I was not so interested in the design part, but more on the visualization side of architecture. So after a few months working in a studio in Palermo, I understood that I wanted to learn how to make renderings and that I could have been good at it. Design there were no good pretty school in Sicily, so I decided to move from Palermo to Milan and to attend a master in CGI for architecture. This was a beautiful experience, and the weather was not that bad actually. After this experience, this experience made me understand what I wanted to do in life. So when I went back to Sicily, I was very proud to tell the people that would ask what my job was, what I was doing. So when someone asked me, what is your job, Antonio? I was very proud to say I am an architectural visualizer. But usually they react like this because, of course, they didn't know what a visualizer was. And then I tried to explain them, you know, man, I build 3D model and with my PC, and then I use light, build material, blah, blah, blah. And I think that they pretended to understand, and the conversation usually went further. And I was thinking maybe say that I am an architectural visualizer is not the right answer. So I started to try to understand what some people that were doing my same job, how they define themselves. So I decided to answer to the question that I'm a 3D artist. The reaction were even worse, I think. Because in Italy, when you say to someone that you're an artist, in the best case scenario is that they think of you like this, but the worst case scenario is they think you like this. Some of them were very kind, actually, maybe because they were thinking of me like this. So after I try to explain that what I was doing, they usually say to me, oh, "Okay, gotcha, man. You do renderings." And in my mind, I was like, "No, I don't do renders. I want to communicate something with my images. My renderings are different, blah blah blah." But then then realizing that I could only make my situation worse from that point of view, I usually say, "Yeah, sure, I do renderings." But I was sure that they were thinking about, I do render, I'm a render specialist, but I was sure that they were thinking more about this kind of images, or maybe this kind of images. or this kind. Instead, I was more thinking about this, or this, or also this. So, not happy. I try to understand how other great artists and companies explain to the public, the audience, what was their job to the people on their website or on the social network. Among all the hundreds of descriptions that I read, I decided to show you today 3 that particularly impressed me. So the first one is by this amazing firm called Kilograph. As I say, architect funded. They are very interested, they say, in communicating the same vision in new and exciting ways. Stunning for me. This one by Big Picture Visual, which is a small studio based in Italy. Their mission is to help architects and developers bridge the gap between audience and architecture. Beautiful way to describe a mission, I think. Also, this one by Beauty and the Beat, Madrid-based visualization studio that says that they are specialized in narrating, suggesting, and evoking architectural spaces through images. It's not enough. They say that each image has to tell its own story, singular and personal one, which managed to get to the observer's heart. Reading all those lines, I understood that first of all, I had to be clear myself what my job was, and I tried to summarize that what is the mission of architectural visualization studio or artist is, of course, to help artists and developers to communicate their projects and to bridge the gap between architecture and audience. How they can do this, of course, doing CGI, computer generating images that has, of course, to tell stories. This leads us to introduce the main theme of this conference, which is storytelling in architectural visualization. By the way, returning to my dilemma, when someone asked me what job I do, I decided to answer that, okay, I'm a 3D artist, and I do images which tell story. Then I enjoy their faces and just trying to explain them what my job is. I often say that for me, doing images is like cooking. I really like cooking, as you can see here from this picture. And I do really, of course, doing images, which is my job. But I think that to be both a good chef and a good architectural visualizer, you have to be curious. And be curious means that you have to try different foods if you want to be a good chef. And as well, if you want to be a good architectural visualizer, you have to feed your eyes and your soul with lots of images and visual inputs, not only related to architecture and not only with CGIs, but for example, I really like photography, really watch photography, or also movie, from which I draw lots of inspiration, and also paintings. Okay. Also paintings, but of course you can find inspiration in whatever you like, also in music, for example. In the first part of this conference, I will talk to you about the concept of storytelling, and I will show you some images that truly inspired me and still inspire me, trying to explain you why these inspire me. I can say that they are some of my favorite food, some of my favorite dishes, visual dishes, of course. And I think that eating different visual food is vital to build your own visual memory. This is very important, I think, for you as a classic architect. in order to avoid to just copy, but to design something new. To design something new, it's important to understand why we are attracted by some project or by some images. It's important to understand what is the recipe of a good image. It's important to understand what are the ingredients, in which proportions are they used, in which exact moment of the process. If we want to continue this association with cooking, we could say that there are actually few ingredients that make up a good image, and I will try to highlight these ingredients in the following images. One, the base of every 3D project, of course, you know, is a 3D model. And I think that the quality of modeling is not only the amount of polygons or subdivisions of a mesh, but also the ability to manage a 3D model in a scene and to avoid that your PC crashes, for example. But of course, if you have a good machine, you can render very complicated scene like this one, or by Lucid Dreams. This other one by Bertrand Benoit. You can see lots of organic shape here, modeled by Bertrand, or images like this with lots of good modeling of organic shape, like the leaves or the wood here. And you can see here the clay render without materials and rendered with materials. You can see that the modeling is played a very important role in the success of these images. Another important ingredients is, of course, lighting. I'd say that our job is very similar to the one of the photographer, and we can say that in a certain way we are 3D photographers. And I hope you know, and I think you know, that photography literally means writing or drawing with light. We can use light to, for example, like here in this image by Dark Studio, to guide the viewer's gaze on someone or something, or we can just use light to feed fill the space, like Bertrand Benoit in this other image with this white Nordic light, or as the boundary do in this image, play with contrast with the different temperature of light, with the cold blue light of the blue hour outside and the warm inside. They do the same here. Another important aspect of images are framing and composition. As we said, we have to behave like photographers and apply to architectural visualization the same rules and technique of photography. Two of the main elements, as I said, are framing and composition. And we can see how, in this case, also the boundary applied to rules that are symmetry, that of course you know, and another rules of photography, that is the rule of thirds. Rule of thirds consists in breaking an image down in 9 parts, 4 lines and 4 points. The theory is that if you place the elements along the lines or in this point of intersection between the lines, the image will have a good balance, and this will enable the viewer of the image to interact with it more naturally. This image by Beauty and a Bit, they do the same. And also here, in this is a frame from an outstanding short movie by Alex Roman. If you have the chance, please watch it. Maybe I can give you the link later. The third and the seventh. And also here, You can see how he applied symmetry, which was one of the rules applied by Louis Kahn to design this building as well. Another element is color theory, because even if we know that colors play an important role in an image, we have to know that there are some rules that we can follow to obtain a nice result. These rules are related to color theory. Again, I will not be too technical, but you have to know that the goal is to obtain a good balance between colors and to have harmony. In this image, I'm sure that you will not see something weird about the color, because the artist really knew how to use colors to obtain a good result, a successful image. The elements are details and photorealism. I like to think that photorealism is not a goal, at least for me, but is just an element like the others, very important elements, but it's up to you to use it. It's not easy to achieve a photoreal look, of course, but it will give you your image nice taste, like in this image, like of John Lindquist. Or here, also from John Lindquist, where you can see also a good use of the material with all the imperfection of the leather. Of course, there are, you can see here even a good modeling and a good lighting that are all elements that contribute to the success of this image. Or this image like of Bertrand Benoit, where you can see this beautiful depth of field, which is a technique that you can use also in the real photography to give more depth to your image. Well, we have seen lots of elements that make up a good image, but I still ask you and ask myself, what is the goal of an image? I will show you now a video from the animation movie Ratatouille. Let me share with you the link. That help me introduce the main theme of the conference. Okay. Let me go back to it. Okay. So, what is the goal of an image? The goal is the same of someone who cook for someone else, I think. The goal is to evoke wonder. How we can evoke wonder. We can evoke wonder creating a connection with the viewer. You know, I think that architectural visualization is about building an emotional link between architecture and the public. The key for creating this connection is emotions. But how do emotions work? I found a very good explanation in a video by a YouTuber called Fabio Palvelli that I saw a few months ago. We basically have two kinds of emotions, good or bad. In the middle, we have indifference, which I don't know that is it an emotion or not. Emotions, our emotions are in our personal experience, and our personal experience is made up by our own memories, and each memory is related to an emotion or to a set of emotions. So we can say that emotions really rely on personal experience and cultural background. Emotions are very important, or as my friend Harvey Keitel said in the movie of Paolo Sorrentino, emotions are all we've got. The best way to provoke emotions is to tell a story. When someone tells us a story, in fact, we live again that experience. And this is possible because our brain activates certain areas related to that experience, triggering both emotions and memories in a continuous cycle. So stories remain rooted in our memory, associated with emotions. We can say that they are, for us, a tool to understand the world. Our brain, in fact, is made to attribute meaning to everything and to learn from every situation. And this has been proven by science. I will show you another small video of an experiment that these two guys did in 1944. They asked people what they were watching. I will ask you the same. Let me share the video. It's not very exciting, I know. By the way, they asked this to 120 people, what they were saying, but only 3 said that they were seeing moving geometric shapes, which is actually what we see. 117 have seen stories related to emotions that, as we said, rely on the personal background of the viewer. Our brain, so as we say, try to find coherence between the inputs that it receives. And we can say that our brain is able to transform those inputs in stories. It is like our brain tries to put together a puzzle. Let me go back. So we can say that our brain is a problem solver, like Harvey Keitel in Pulp Fiction again. But what is a story? I am sure that you all know what is a story, what is the concept of a story, but how can you describe a story? I found this very good definition watching a video of another Italian YouTuber called Mick Codelli, just Mick. Let's say that a story is a set of sensory packages presented in a particular way which allow the viewer to internalize and understand the material quickly and easily, creating meaning. Stories are basically just simulations that remind us of the past and help us to understand how to live the future. When someone tells us a story, we identify ourselves with that story. We can say that we are the protagonist of the story, and there are lots of scientific studies that show corresponding brain activation between actions told and action experienced. For example, I remember when Titanic was for the first time was in the cinema, lots of girls were deeply in love, not with Leo, but with Jake or Jack, I don't remember. And the first time, so for me it was really weird, but the first time I watched Titanic, I fell in love with Rose. I was just 10 years old, maybe. Except in this scene when I remember I was very angry with Rose because I would say, "Come on, Rose, there is enough space for both of us. Move on." But it didn't end well. But years later, I understood that identifying oneself in a story gives the brain the opportunity to experience many hypothetical situations. Gives the opportunity to live that situation before it happens, and or to live it again. Imagine how powerful is these tools, for example, for the real estate industry, in these crazy times more than ever, or for architects that have to present their project to their clients. These images are by D-Box. And for example, here I can feel the sea breeze, not of Miami, because I've never been in Miami, but of my hometown. I can feel the good smell of these flowers and the sensation of relax that this image conveys to me. Or here, another image by Benyan. I know that if you are talking about storytelling from some media, it's easier to understand, like movies or novels. But when talking about storytelling in still images, there is a risk of falling into easy misunderstanding. As we have already seen, we don't need to write a proper script for every image. Even if there are some artists that can do this in a very successful way. But for us, it's easier to draw situations from our own experience, from our imagination, or from our everyday life, and try to convert these narrative elements that have to be coherent with the scene, and most of all, has to be recognizable by the viewer. So at the end of the day, this is the ultimate goal of an image, to create a connection with the viewers by triggering certain emotions and or memories. To do this, we must ensure that our images have some elements that have to be recognizable by the viewers. That these elements mean something to our viewers. Now I want to talk about an image that I can say changed my life, because it was the very first time I realized everything I just told you. This is an image by Mir, which is a Bergen studio, Bergen-based studio in Norway. They have a very, very cool approach to architectural visualization, very artistic, and I do personally like their style. You know, this image is, from a technical point of view, it's nothing outstanding, I think. We can say that they respect the basic rules of composition. They choose a good color palette with a good balance between colors, between warm colors and cold colors. We can say that, we can say that the recipe of this image is very simple, and that it is not an impossible image to replicate, as I say. But I'm sure that you notice there is a very strange and uncommon element in this image, which is this garbage truck here. When I saw this image, I think that happened something very close to what we have seen happen to Anton Ego in Ratatouille. So I was thinking about a very, very cute me. Yeah, it was very, very cute. That in the middle of the night, when I heard the sound of the garbage truck, I was yelling like a fool, waking up my father and ask him to bring me outside on my balcony to see the garbage truck. I don't know why I was so fascinated by the garbage truck. Maybe the sound, the colors, the lights. I don't know. But that's why I'm deeply connected with this image. And that's why I understand how that storytelling is very important, and to convey a message. I'm sure that Mir didn't think about me, of course, but it's good how they bring this connection. I will talk to you about this other image by one of my favorite artists, Csaba Banati, that also worked for Mir. This is a beautiful image that was made, I think, 7 years ago, but I think that it reflects very much the times we are living in right now. It is an image that has lots of contrast between the external world, where you can see is ultra modern with a lot of concrete building, maybe some pollution, and inside of this building with a girl with her own desires, that are very simple desires, not so complicated, like playing outside, staying with her own family, enjoy the warm light of the sun. In this period, I often thought about this image, and I often identify myself with this little girl. Of course, here we have a very strong narrative element, very easy to recognize, as well as in this other image by the same author. In this image, of course, you can see the very strong element that are these boys here. I listened to a keynote speech that Csaba, the author, did last year at the D2 conference in Vienna, when he was talking about this image. And he said that there was a sort of legend circulating among the kids about a challenge that consisted of jumping from one building to another. And this was one of the elements that inspired him. This also reminds me of my childhood, when with my friends, we did lots of stupid stuff, sometimes quite dangerous, lots of challenges. And yeah, it brought me back some very good memories. And I can have the same feeling of this guy that is jumping. I can feel the warm light of the sun hitting my body while I'm jumping. And it's pretty epic, I think. We have also lots of other elements like compositions, like lots of details that we cannot maybe appreciate. But I think that the strongest element in the image is, of course, this guy's jumping. This is another good image from Mir, but it was actually designed by Csaba Banati as well. And of course, it brings back, I think, in lots of memories from every child that has played football when he was young, with the dream of one day maybe playing in front of lots of people in a stadium. It was my dream as well, but it was not good enough. other image by Visualisation. It's different from the others, but I do really like the composition and other stuff. There are these people that this I think is a gallery or a museum, and the artist didn't show like the exhibition, but the moment before or later the exhibition when they are preparing or dismantling the exhibition. I do really like this because there is something that is happening. It's a very unconventional way to portray this kind of space. You could rightly point out to me that it's easy, maybe, to tell a story when there are human figures in images that are doing something, like in this case. But I think that this also can be misleading because it's possible to tell story in other ways, even without adding people. I will show this image of one of my closest friends, Mario, that worked with me in architectural portraits. And this image is very simple, but I think that you see he used very strong composition, some kind of atmosphere. This building is one of my favorites. It's a project by Giuseppe Terragni. I don't know if you already know it. It's an amazing project, and I think that this image portrays this part of the building in the right way, as well as Mario did here. Maybe here he did a lot better. As you can see, plus Ferragni, less Ferragni, as Mario said. We have a very strong composition. He applied the rule of third. He studied the geometry of the building, how the lights behave on this elevation. And I think it's a very, very powerful images, even with few ingredients. It's like a pizza, I can say. With only 3 ingredients, you can have a very good. You can have a very good dish. To highlight how it's important to study a building before doing a CGI or a picture, I will show you another image. It's not a CGI, it's just a photograph of the same part of the building, which I think from which you can understand the difference. This is the same part of the building. This is the picture, actually. There is no study of the light, no study of the composition, of the perspective, and so on. Same ingredients. Or in this image by Alex Roman. Again, if you have the chance to watch this movie, please do it. There are no people. It's just everything about the composition and the light. And the atmosphere, of course, of this beautiful building by Tadao Ando, if I'm not wrong. Here, the same, there are no people in the audience, just a lonely piano in the center, and good choice of light and composition. Or in this image by Peter Guthrie, which is the founder of the Boundary, where we have great composition. We can see that there are some guidelines for our eyes that are this diagonal here of these footprints that let us go inside the house. We can see also the contrast between the cold light and the cold environment of the outside and the warm light and the warm environment of the inside. Here. This image by Mir, where okay, there are people, but they are not doing something in particular. They are not the protagonists, the main characters of this image. We can say that what I think the image wants to communicate that near this building by Snøhetta, if I'm not wrong, You can just sit down with your friends, just relax, and you can stay in the sun or you can stay in the shade and just enjoy your pause from the work, for example. For this image by Archi9, where again I can feel the fresh air under these palms, but my attention slowly goes to the building and in this pool or sea, I don't know. This is the image by Visualisation, where the lights play a very important role. We cannot see too much of the inside, but our eyes is really projected outside, and to see what's outside this metro station, I think, not sure. Or this image again by Mir, in which I recognize some elements like the Cathedral of Charles of this field in the foreground, and these people doing nothing but maybe meditating or thinking. It made me think about these paintings by Miller. You can see here a cathedral on the background and these people praying on a field. I'm not sure that they all thought about this painting, maybe, but that was I was thinking when I saw this image. Okay, I hope that is clear for you guys what role plays storytelling in images, according to me. And now I will talk about some of my images, both personal and commercial projects, trying to explain the main aspects and challenges of some of them. I will start with maybe the first image I realized when I still was a student in Milan. And this is an actual building by Sana, I think it's a design school in Germany. But this building is also the house of the protagonist of the movie by Wim Wenders called Palermo Shooting. After I seen this movie, I wanted to realize an image about this. So I started to collect some images and technical drawings of the building. This is an actual frame from Palermo Shooting, or reference again here, and trying to then model the building and all the environment, trying to study framing and composition of this image, which was quite straightforward. I used some 3D assets funded online, and I modeled lots of stuff like, of course, garbage in Marvel's Designer. And then I decided to realize just a raw render. This is how the render came out from Cinema 4D and V-Ray. And then I decided to did lots of post-production. The small background, added trees, correction, people, again some color correction, the dirt on the building. Oh, sorry. I chose to not use 3D asset, for example, for the trees or here or for the grass, because of course my machine was not so powerful to sustain a very heavy model. And I think maybe I don't have a super photorealistic look, but it was not my goal. Again, it was like to convey this kind of mood. This other image was I did this image as well during my master, and the goal of this image was to learn from Wes Anderson. This my only reference for this image was this. I'm not sure this is an actual frame from the movie, but I mean this is the space that you can see in the movie. And this is a clay render. I modeled almost everything except this guy here. And the main goal was, of course, to achieve the same warm look of the image, and to I added like a personal touch, like this fisheye lens, to personalize the image, because I think it was quite boring like this. It maybe could be good in a movie, but it works not so good as a still image. And then in post-production, I just did color corrections, and I worked here on the floor, adding this wet floor, rendering two kind of floors separately, one dry, one wet, and then with a layer mask, I just paint some parts that I want to be more reflective. These are the images from the same projects, learning from Wes. Also here, I have just one reference, which is here, the hall of the Grand Budapest Hotel. And the main challenges was to have the same kind of lighting. So I studied the light of this image, and how actual the light works on a movie set. I modeled also here almost everything. This how was my light setup. As you can see, lots of area plain light, and to have soft shadows on scene. This is the raw render, and then in post-production just did some color correction, some adjustment of the luminosity and the contrast, nothing special. You can see here a comparison. This side is the actual image, this side is the render. You can see that the result is pretty close, I think. This other image, which is the cover of this meeting, Dream Theater. This image was like a challenge for myself to realize a good image in from the concept to the final image in less than 3 hours. I spent maybe little more, 4 hours. I don't remember. It was a Sunday, very boring Sunday. This was my reference from Instagram, and then other reference was in that period I was really addicted to Breaking Bad, and I wanted to have like this Breaking Bad look, like when they go to Mexico and the lights and the color palette change completely. This was the goal. The modeling part was pretty straightforward, nothing special to do. Only one material is concrete that I downloaded from Polygon, and then I tweaked it a little to achieve this very damaged result. I tried to achieve this look both here in production and in post-production, as we can see. Another issues of this model was to avoid repetitions. You have to avoid repetitions every time you, of course, do architectural visualization images, which is the first wrong element that the human eye will notice. So I decided to make these lots of cuts and apply to them different UVW projection to avoid the repetition. Here you can see the raw render, how it went out from the render engine. And then I start the post-production part, adding the part of the background and some color correction again. This is the final image. This image is called BioLife. I don't have a breakdown for this, but I will just, and for the other images I will show you, I will just talk a little about the process. In this image was realized in July or August. I was very tired of working in office. Actually, I like to do my job, so I was thinking about how should be to work like in this amazing place like Bali. So I decided to bring with me, as you can see here, my laptop. Now I have more stickers, and just to imagine how should have been to work in a paradise like this. For this image, I wish I were a child again. Is an image that we did with Mario just to practice with Corona render. This was one of the first images that we did with this beautiful render engine. And then we decided to add some elements like these puppets to add this nostalgic element. If I'm not wrong, this image was realized for the Blue Monday. That's why you can see this. The blue color is predominant. This is a commercial project we did for 2 studios in Palermo, Cangemi and WLVArchitecture. It was an architectural competition for a firefighter station, and the concept is that we all know that firefighters are very brave people, very brave men, tough at times, and they have to be like this because their work is very hard. So we decided to give to this image this very gray mood with not a proper sunny day. But this is the outside. We all know that inside firefighters are people like us with lots of feelings, especially if they work outside, if they work distant from their beloved ones, from their family. We are sure that they usually think about them. This was the concept. This is also an image for an architectural competition. This time it was a school in Emilia-Romagna, if I'm not wrong. This image is called Last Day of School, and the feeling we want to convey was like, the moment after the last bell of the last day rings and the kids can finally enjoy their summer holidays, and they run away and there is no time to put the balls in their place. Now, the last image I want to talk to you about is an image I made for fun about a year ago, I think. And also here I challenged myself to make an image from concept to the end in 3 hours. It was also one of the first images I made with Corona. And the name of the image is Life is Like a Boat, and it's inspired by a song of a Japanese singer, Riefu. I don't know how many of you know the singer. What I want to say with this image is that life is really unpredictable, and now as never before we are understanding it. A month you can find yourself out traveling the world, and the next month you find yourself locked down, naked, in your cave, playing with pepper bots in your palm. However, there is a glimmer of light coming from outside, and that gives birth to something special and beautiful as the tree in the center of the image. And in my case, the opportunity to tell you a little about my work and my passion. I think that soon after getting dressed, we may go out again. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Antonio. It was very interesting. I like your wider approach to the theme. It's not just like saying, oh, I have to do, as you said, you're not doing render, you're telling a story. And I hope this story will help our community. It's not just a class, because it's okay, it's part of the visualization course, but for me it's not for the class, it's for the community itself. We have a few questions that I took notes in shared notes, and then I would like to ask Mike, because Mike has got a question before relating to the visualization words and software and how to get in the word. Mike.
Hi.
Hi, Mike.
Hello. Hi. Thank you. That was a great presentation, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
No problem. Yeah. So the question I had, obviously, I'm year 2 architecture, part 1, and obviously there's a lot of softwares out there at the moment, and I'm at a basic level at the moment, you could say, and it's kind of almost overwhelming when you look at all these other softwares. There's 3ds Max, there's Maya, and then there's V-Ray. What would you say? I mean, for somebody who's trying to start in this field, what would you recommend? Would you say it's about using a basic software, or maybe using something advanced to get you up there? How would you break into this?
Well, I think as you seen, I didn't talk about software because I think that software are just tools. If you want to continue with the cooking comparison, we can say that softwares are like the cookers or like a blender. You can learn everything if you want. I think I am both a Cinema 4D user and a 3ds Max user, because now that I'm here in UK, I had to learn 3ds Max. I'm a 3ds Max user since February. I'm still learning, but after learning Cinema 4D, I think it's easier. But I mean, it's not. There is no recommended software. Just start with whatever you want. Maybe in a working perspective, if you want to be hired by a studio here in UK, the standard is architectural visualization is 3ds Max with V-Ray or Corona.
Sure.
So I suggest you maybe to start with 3ds Max, and there are lots of tutorials that you can find online to solve. I watch lots of tutorials when I have to solve a problem. So it's not important. I think that both Cinema 4D and 3ds Max are very powerful software, and I love both, even if sometimes 3ds Max crashed, and Cinema 4D never crashed with me in 3 years, but that's okay. 3ds Max has a lot of powerful tools inside it. That is
what do you think? Sorry. What do you think about SketchUp?
I never used SketchUp, only when I was a student. Yeah. But I've seen lots of nice images that were made with SketchUp. That's because the software is not, as I told you, like I mean, you don't go to a painter and ask him what brush he used or what colors. They are important, of course, but sure, you can achieve very good results from every software. It's up to you to learn and to solve problems, to practice every day, and to find yourself comfortable with that software.
I can say
thank you.
The experience on this experience I've got it because I'm the model leader for visualization, and I had to learn 3ds Max as we are like on PC based, and I come from Cinema 4D. Was not a big curve because when you know how to use a tool, maybe you will learn other tools very easily. So let's start with this. I think what Antonio said is that like having a good idea, having a good like wide skills, and then just learn a tool, and then you can move tool by tool. In my career, I changed different cards, different software, and maybe Mike is not. This is not a big problem going for the straightforward software. Anyway, as Antonio said, if you think about commercial things, you will go for 3ds with V-Ray and Corona. Then we have another question. Paul Bowden was asking about cloud render tool. Paul, do you want to ask Antonio?
Hi, Antonio. Thank you very much for it's a marvelous presentation. Some fantastic images there as well. I love some of your little one-liners, building up a visual memory and 3D photographers. And I think I love that one about what is the recipe of an image. But yeah, it's gone on probably on a little bit from what Mike's question was as well. Do you ever use any 3D render tools? Obviously, you spoke about using Studio Max and Corona, which is very brave in this day and age using Corona with the current climate. But do you use any sort of cloud-based web facilities at all? Any cloud rendering, just so it frees up your hardware so you can do multitasking rather than just having one laptop or one bit of hardware processing your images?
Sorry, what is the question?
If you use like online tools, render tools that help you to have a more powerful like.
Yes, in the past I've used some render farm. I don't know if you are talking about this. When they basically, you can build your 3D model in your machine, and then with an application inside your software, you can send to them basically the 3D model with all the assets, and after a few hours or minutes, sometimes they can send you back the image. I don't know if was this the question.
Yeah,
now
it was just basically, yeah, Antonio, seeing how much flexibility that gives you, rather than sort of holding your PC down to a rendering task, you could use that cloud facility to produce the images quicker or more efficiently.
A lot of noise. Sorry.
So it's happened that you went through these facilities to avoid to stay there, and then that stuck your PC with the render, so you can keep working on the PC someone is doing, which is more or less what the big 3D company are doing. Like I have a friend who is senior visualizer for Weta with Cameron, and they have render farms, so they keep working, and then the farm realize the render that came back to them. I have another question from Ahmad. Ahmad, do you want to ask the question? It's about how to create a story for an interior. Ahmad?
This is the question. When I create interior renders,
you can create a story for an interior. If you have like just few tips.
Well, I say creating a story doesn't mean just to it's not only adding like elements like the puppets in this image, maybe here. These are elements that we are just for fun. Usually in interiors, I think that you can create a story using light, using materials, using the framing and the composition. Creating a story, as I said, doesn't mean to have a script like a movie director does, but just playing with these recognizable elements. I mean, I think that this image here has no people, but I think that everyone that maybe can recognize this Arizona, New Mexico desert and this concrete architecture. It's only this thing. And for interior as well, just use other elements and look at references on the, for example, on the catalog or magazines, or just on Pinterest more easily. Look for reference, collect a lot of reference, and then try to understand what story you have to tell. Sometimes you have just to tell to, for example, for real estate developers how their building, how their apartment are luxurious. So you can maybe add some very luxury furniture, and this is just, and use very sexy light, and this is how you can tell a story, for example.
Okay, we have another question, Mike.
Hi. Yeah, I've just put the question. I'll just read it again out. Basically, obviously, visualizations were used to render end products. Going back about 20 years when ArchiCAD was first out, it was quite popular among some of the big companies, but they never used it for the process or storytelling. It was more for the end product, and this is what it will look like. But I'm seeing with the stories and videos on YouTube and people like yourselves presenting a product while it's still sort of in process, and making a journey to the end stage. What is your thought? I mean, do you think the 3D visualization is now coming more earlier into the process of design than traditionally before, as it was at the end of the story? What do you think? Or is that even a thing, do you think?
Yeah, I think that now, because we can achieve a very good result in less time. Of course, it happens very often that clients, for example, use the visualization, 3D visualization, the photorealistic visualization as a tool for design, but also the visualizer in-house, for example, in architectural firm, even if they are not like professional visualizer, or they don't use professional software, that most common software, they can achieve very good result that can help, of course, in the design process. In the past, it was only about, I don't know, sketching or, sorry?
Sure. Now, I was going to give an example where Zaha Hadid's practice used the concept of parametric design, where the computer produces algorithms thinking about expressions and rules and sort of putting formulas into a computer machine, which it produces conceptual renders. It starts to inform the building, and it becomes part of the story of the architecture, if you like. What do you think about that?
You're talking about like conceptual renderings?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Patrick Schumacher a few years ago produced a video where he was talking about it in a lot of detail, where the end product essentially was always there. But it came to the fore through processes through the computer. I mean, it's probably a little bit of a tangent, I suppose, from what you've kind of talked about, but it's still looking at the future of the design process, and how computer visualizations are now breaking grounds in the way the final product is actually delivered.
Can I add something to this question? Because it's something that I took note, and then I would like to tell you after, but I think it's consistent with what Mike is saying. What is the difference working for a developer when you have the final product and then you have to produce the image, or working as a visualizer and architect at the same? What could be the difference? So being in the process of doing architecture, or at the end, being in the process just of communicating architecture. And I think what Mike is saying, the importance of visualization to visualize the process rather than just visualize the final architecture. What do you think, Antonio? It's something that is going in that direction or not? Or I think it's not just an answer, but maybe a point of view.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my job is more focused on the to deliver final image. Maybe they are more, I can say, marketing related, for marketing purpose. But yeah, I think that also image that can help to communicate the process can be useful, if this is the question.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Mike.
hi.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
We have
Yeah,
another
no
question.
problem.
Ahmad, could you?
Yes, hello. Hello, everyone.
Okay, you can ask Antonio.
Yes, hello.
Hi.
So first of all, thank you for the lecture. Very, very interesting, and thank you for your time. So I have noticed that your renders, they have a little amount of people. If not, they have none. They have no people. For example, when I was in my time at university, we get told that we get encouraged to add people. I know the amount of people is still up to us, but what's your opinion on adding a lot of people? You know, to add culture or to give a bit more context and tell more of a story. Or do you think that the story can be also portrayed shown more convincingly without people?
Yes, I think that there is not like the right amount is up to you and up to the context, of course. Yeah, maybe in the image I showed you, there are not a lot of people. But for example, if of course, for example, last week I delivered a project of a theater in which the client wanted to have, of course, lots of people in the audience, and so I had to add lots because the context was a concert. I mean, because the goal of the clients was to sell that space to do concert. So it would have been not a good idea to have an empty audience, and I think that even if the space should have been very good even without audience, but you know that the last goal is to communicate what the clients want. Then you have to choose the right way to communicate what happened in that space. Sometimes it's not about the architecture, but about what happened in that space, in the architecture. And I think that this could also be the approach of the architect, not to think just about the concrete part of a building, but about the stories that can happen inside the architecture.
Okay, we have Paul Bowden asking about generative design. Paul. Hello. Okay, I read the question for you. So it's mainly, have you used any generative design architecture tools? It's got a problem with mine. You told me. Okay.
What is generative design?
So the tools that generate the design by themselves, like parametric things.
And we usually in commercial projects, they send us a 3D model from Revit most of the times, or if we have to model a project from scratch, we use 3ds Max. And in the past, I modeled directly in Cinema 4D.
So let's say you are more on the visualization side right now.
Yeah.
Okay, Katie, about how help students to develop their own languages. Katie, do you want to ask Antonio? Katie? Okay, I will leave the question for you because Katie said, when you look at the people like Archigram, I know it's a bit old, they have a clear graphic style. What advice can you give to students about developing their own language or commentary to set them apart from others?
Yeah, I strongly recommend to develop your own language and to set apart from others. To do this, you don't have to invent anything. You have to, as I say, feed your eyes and your brain with lots of visual input, and then starting, maybe it's good to start copying some images that you like, and as I told you, to understand why you like that image, and then to develop your own visual and personal style.
Okay, Antonio. So I have a few notes, and then I'll asking you about the last, let's say, 3 questions that I care a lot about. Just 3 minutes. Well, the very first one is connecting to what Kate said. Is there any opportunity that the image will stand out beyond the architecture? So where the importance of image is important more than the project itself?
Yes, I think that, I mean, you think, you are asking me if this can happen?
Yeah.
I think yes, and there is a very strong image by Luxigon. I don't have here, but maybe I can give you a link. It's a project by OMA, but this image is really outstanding, and it is a milestone in the architectural visualization history. And I found out that the architecture was by OMA maybe last week, but I remember this image as one of my favorite. And I think in other cases, or for example, if you've seen in the, I don't know which slide is, no, in the image of the stadium, don't know if you remember it.
The child's playing.
Right. This image here, this image is very strong, I think, but the concept of this image, I think, is strongly related to the architecture. And so I think that it could be possible that some image could maybe be stronger than the architecture. I don't know what is the right word.
Then,
but maybe the final goal is just to have a good balance between the two.
The other 2 things. Last week we were talking and we agreed on a concept that I would like you talk about this, but maybe you can tell us a little bit more. So we are chasing perfection through imperfection. So a good render, to be realistic, is full of imperfection. Could you tell us about it?
Yeah, we'll show you this image. For example, there is a good breakdown on this image online, where you can see the raw render of this image is we have this concrete which is perfectly designed in Cinema 4D, but it's kind of difficult to have a good amount of dirt. Dirt is very important because give that realistic look, because everything is dirt in life, even if sometimes clients want everything super clean. But imperfections, I think, in this case of imperfection, I don't like imperfection in compositions or in lighting or in other important elements, in the basic elements of an image. But adding imperfection, I think, is vital. There is also this image by the imperfections of the leather are fundamental to give a very realistic look. Sometimes in images, I usually add a chromatic aberration don't know if you know what it is. It's some kind of
effect of the
error
lens.
of the lens that photographers actually trying to cancel from the image. Instead, I add it to get that it's something very subtle, very difficult to see, of course, but I think that give usually to image a very realistic look.
Okay, the last things that I do care is, as course leader, I introduce sometimes to applicants studies in architecture and what does it mean studying architecture. What I said is architecture, the studies, you're an architect anyway, just to be clear, Anthony is an architect, give you like a way of thinking, a structure that after this you can develop your own approach. So you said, I had my degree, but then I knew even before that I don't want to be an architect, I want to be a visualizer. So as I always said, okay, the three of the Pink Floyds were architects. Mark Ford is an architect. Samuel L. Johnson is an architect. So talking about architectural visualization, what do you think would be a path to become a visualizer, and how do you think a good visualizer is important that has an architectural background?
Well, I think is of course very important because you, as I said, you have usually to understand a building, and at least you are if to understand really how a building works. Usually you have to have studied architecture. You know, in our field there are I think that 90% of architectural visualizers that I know are architects or some study related to design in general. And I think that is not mandatory maybe to have an architectural background, but it's very important, as well as important to being very passionate and understand photography, and to be passionate about art in general, because as I told you, you have to have in your inspiration more images as possible. But you know, being an architect, it's important in order to maybe read the soul of a building, to understand how it works, not just to read the plans, because you can learn how to read a plan, you can learn how to read a section, but yes, it's something more related to understand building in its own complexity. I cannot hear you.
You hear me?
Yeah.
So I think we have no more question, and we have done. We are 2 hours, and I'll take the presenter back, and I will tell all of you first of all that next Tuesday we have another lecture, which is Architectural Engagement of Social Media with Josh Foster. Josh is Wolverhampton guy, actually part 2 students, and he's the founder of this blog, which is a architecture student blog with 70,000 followers on Instagram. It's about understanding what is the role of social media and how we can improve the social media. At the end of this lecture, I would like to thank you, Antonio. I have a big esteem of him, and I really enjoyed the lecture. I really enjoyed his wider approach. I'm sure that was very useful for the student just to have a different point of view of someone who is focused on visualization, but more and more with a thinker, and let us understanding about our own like production house design and how we can communicate with people. Thank you for attending the lecture. Stay home, protect the NHS, save lives, as the government would say. But I would like to add, be creative, keep learning, and as University of Wolverhampton, we are trying to invite our friends as Antonio to give lecture to us and to our community. Please follow us on Facebook, WLV Architecture, Twitter, and Instagram. If you have questions, you can send an email to me at .pintacuda@WLVAC UK, but you should have my email as you asked me to join this lecture. And I hope I'll see you next Tuesday for the lecture of Josh. Thank you for attending. Thank you, Antonio.
Thank you guys.
I'm wrapping up this lecture. Bye, cheers.
Bye.